Game 1 victory going over to FPX, and I don't think anyone was surprised by that. No upset coming out for Game 1. Vici were not able to show up, and a lot of it was attacking the bottom lane for FPX, which allowed them access into the mid stages of that game.
Yep, Zyrakan gonna have to shove in the lane. Now, the one thing you have to look and remember if you're the audience is, of course, the Swain matchup alongside the Alistar's great pick potential. So it was crucial for Alex to be in the bottom side early, which he was. I think Alex had a phenomenal game this time around, being in the bot side early to make it so he just saw 0-3 start. I suppose 1-3 because the counter gank came in through from the opposite end. Swift did a good job being able to match it, but ultimately Alex had full control in the bottom side of the map, gets Rift Hero top side, and was able to just run away with that early game advantage.
Which was key. We already talked about how important it is for Alex to be on this roster because he's basically support to Cool, assists him to assist the team. And he picked up MVP after that match as well, and rightfully so. He was the catalyst for FPX's success in the ganks that came out very early into the match.
Yeah, I love the fact that he would immediately segue his bottom side pressure to top side because he already did his job there. LWX was fairly confident with the lead that he had in that portion of the map, so going to the top lane, you saw Gimgoon pay it forward.
Yep.
The pressure that he had, ultimately, then he would use his ultimate ability, Clyde, charging towards the mid lane. I felt like everyone was in tune. The practice that they had coming into the set is paying off, at least for Game 1, that it felt very fluid for Alex.
Yeah, Alex has been adapting to the FPX lineup. Still has some things to iron out moving forward with the rest of FPX, but this is a perfect match for them to actually start doing that because Vici currently bottom of the table, didn't put up that huge of a resistance during that game itself, and didn't look good for Vici because it was from start to finish where there were mistakes as well as just no plays being made on Vici's side to try and get back into it.
Yeah, and I think I'm not going to immediately blame anybody other than to communication. And as I'm getting communication, that's some beatboxing happening. No, but anyways, it is communication. On Vici's side, that the bottom lane dying really early on without the help of Swift. Communicating where is Swift actually playing, because even if you have the bottom lane pressure rolling through, you need the help of Swift if you're going to be doing at least providing the early pressure. So you ever find yourself 0-3 early on in the game, you only have yourself to blame. So Snow had a rough one in Game 1.
Didn't have Swift as much as he would have liked in that first match, but you know, they're going to get some support from the beatboxers going into Game 2, that's for sure, Raz. It is Vici's Fan Appreciation Day today here, so they are celebrating at the Shanghai Superbrand Mall. Unfortunately, the first match is not one for them to celebrate about, but going into the next match, what do we hope for change for Vici going into Game 2 to try and cause an upset against FPX?
I felt like the talent pick immediately. Yeah, this is going wild right now. I'm telling you, this is going to be slick. So at least this is going to power them up. And this power should go straight towards Caveman, who I thought had actually a really good Game 1. Felt like his pressure that he was taking from bottom lane going to mid lane, it was paying off. The first kill that they got on to Cool, excellently played from him. And then it should empower Fire Rain. Those two should be playing well, and hopefully the energy that they have coming through this one and a little bit in Game 1 can transition into Game 2.
Yeah. What do you think should change for their picks going into Game 2 at least? Because if they need to change their play style, they might have to change their picks. I know you really like their composition going into the first match at least.
You have to be hard on this team. You really have to be. If you're the coach, you can't say, oh, I'm going to play to your style. Look to Audi. If you're saying that you can't play tanks just because the rest of your team is acting like monkeys, then we have a problem. This is a great composition. They should run it again if they have the opportunity to do so. Zaya, Rakan, you can only, like, it feels like once in a blue moon that you get a chance to get that bottom side of the map. And they lost because of their own skill. So run that composition again. If it's not working out in practice, if it's not working out on stage, there's only one solution, is to try it again.
Well, for the side of Vici, if they can try that composition again, it'd be great for them against FPX. There's a chance that it will allow them to pick up that composition. But for FPX's side, things weren't 100% clean coming into this match either. Yes, it was very clinical in the sense they got a 29-minute victory. They started through the early game getting ganks and just snowballed a lead, but they were still butchering some of the plays slightly, and it wasn't as clean as we've seen FPX before, which is a bit concerning because they're coming off of a huge win against RNG last week.
Yeah, the reality is both of these teams are trying to learn lessons. Even though FPX took the win versus RNG, that was still an upset. And if RNG gets the run back on that one, RNG is going to come out handily and take the victory. So for FPX, these are lessons being learned. The kill that Fire Rain was supposed to get in the bottom side of the map when they were actually pushing for a victory, if you're going up against a top-tier team, you're going to get punished heavily for that numbers disadvantage there. So if you're FPX, learn those small lessons even in the wins. I think going into the back, they still have a lot to talk about as well.
So going into game 2, how do they solidify their win against Vici? Because if they want to be a team that moves into playoffs, this is their time to actually put on a clinical performance. How do they do that in game 2?
I think it's going to come through mid jungle once again, even though this time it was more so Cool helping out Alex look for invades. There are certain times that Cool did need a bit of help getting picked off by Caveman early on because of the lacking vision on the bottom side of the map. So if you're Alex, come down, help Cool out a little bit, place a control ward on the bottom side, or maybe even top side if you want to say, okay, lean towards top side then. It's the small details that really matter, because if you are this strong of a team, at least coming out of game 1, you want to at least create 100% opportunities rather than the 70%. If we're going up against a poor team, then we won't get punished. If we go up against a better team, then we're going to have a tough time.
Well, if they can, it'd be great. Is there anything that needs to change in terms of their picks, or is there anything that Vici actually needs to take away? Because they got Swain, they got Kindred. They showed very early into the match how the synergy works between those two champions. Is this something that Vici need to be aware of? Because you said their composition was fine for Vici's side of the table. FPX had a decent composition as well, but do Vici need to take something away?
So both of them are happy in the sense that Vici had stronger later on in the game and a strong early game for bottom lane. For FPX, they had great laning phases, or at least great strong topside lanes. So if I'm talking about for Vici, I'll choose Vici for this one. If anything changes, look towards mid lane a little bit, because the talent pick usually would have the push. They were surprised that the Rumble would come in and dissuade them with that push, would be able to control the lane that easily. Maybe look for counter pick there. If there's ever going to be a change for this game specifically, and I'm never going to blame pick ban, but if they require mid lane pressure to make some of the plays early on happen and to protect their bottom lane, then I would say hold off. I'm not going to give you an answer, but say counter pick the Rumble.
Especially if they're going to pick something like On going to the top side of the map. That's something you'd expect if you have a very high priority mid lane pick that you want to have as a counter, so to speak. You could throw out On early, sacrifice the top lane. I mean, Ali was pretty much sacrificed to the top lane anyway. Save your mid lane pick for last. Give FireRain the upper hand.
Definitely. I think in the end of the day, it comes down to confidence. And we know that Audi has an expansive champion pool that he can go on towards, and they can just end up choosing him a Kennen, for instance, or a Fiora. So he can play the carries, and in this time they were surprised that they just found a great composition to run him in. Go on.
Which is great if he does, but it just seemed like from the start they always wanted On for that composition.
Yeah, for that comp 100%. So comes down to planning. I would say I agree with you. Pick the On earlier on, and it looks like you can give FireRain more opportunities because he's not just the Yasuo one-trick.
We have to talk about him, though, because he has been playing a lot of Yasuo games, and yes, he's known for that as a little bit of a one-trick, but he's not. And he's come a long way since we first saw FireRain in the LPL. There's a bit of a meme whenever he was substituted in, but playing very strong recently.
Yeah, the meme was that he just played Mordekaiser. He would have those stints where he would just focus on one champion, master that champion, and continue to move forward. So I feel like today he needs to move on to the next one, or at least just be someone who's known to be diverse enough that you have those 5 champions at the very least they can move on to with a various form of success. So I think FireRain should be that person you move towards, and if it doesn't work out, remember, Vici still have Coco to go back on, Easy Hoon. They have a lot of subs in the mid lane role. If the problem with this team is a champion pool in the mid lane.
Oh, never thought that I could hear that about Vici, especially since I've been using Easy Hoon for so long. Now with FireRain starting for most of the time. He's up against a tough opponent of Cool. We talk about Cool a lot, bringing a lot of leadership to FPX. We talk about him being a very experienced veteran player who's been around for a long time in the LPL. What do you think of Cool mechanically? Has the years of experience made him better mechanically in the mid lane, or has he started to fall short?
This dude surprised me. Honestly surprised me. You'd expect with the years that you put into the scene that you would lose your mechanics and go up against these young bloods, these 18-year-olds, and you'd be like, all right, well, I can't catch him anymore.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened with him. In fact, as the years have gone on with Newbie going on to this team in FPX, it seems like he's only kept up with the best of them. Cool is incredibly strong.
He starts game 1 strong on the Rumble pick. We'll have to see what he picks going into game 2. For now, let's send it over to our casters for that match.
危机眼中的奇迹是用熏血浇灌过后的开花结果。
Alright, we're getting into Champions Select, and once again, I have the voice of God.
I am the Martian.
Remember never to sin. Anyway, we're going to send it back to the analysts and take a short break while we try and get these technical difficulties fixed. We'll be back after this.
It's quite simple! Just stop being underwater when you're casting League of Legends!
I'm surprised they can talk when they're under there. I thought you were the fish.
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm not underwater. I know that you're not meant to be there when you're casting the game. What the heck is going on over there? They've lost their marbles.
Yes, they have. They've created some powers.
They are basically Aurelion Sol right now, trying to cast the LPL. Well, let's take a look at the bans that have come through. Rakan, Zoe, as well as Kindred on the side of Vici. They're playing on the blue side, no substitutes for either team. Swain being taken away by FPX with Talia and Aatrox being banned. Now that gives away Tahm Kench, the first pick for Vici.
And Yasuo seems an option now. Remember, Vici taking blue side means that FPX has to start banning the essentials of Talia, Aatrox. Feel like they don't have to ban Nocturne apparently, as they just took away LWX's own Swain. So they felt like Swain was a big priority in the bottom side no matter who had it.
Let's talk about Swain. He is a huge priority pick. We're not going to see him in this match, but it seems like he is shaping every meta in competitive League of Legends.
He just has the pick potential that you saw what happened in Game 1. So if you're a master of the champion, if you're like a mid laner, Xiaohu and Scout, then you are phenomenal on the pick. Even if you're just an AD carry just picking up a first-time mage, Swain is actually incredibly easy to just kind of pick up and play. So you can see what LWX was able to do with even some butchered combinations in the later portions of the game. He just had a strong laning phase and set up for his jungler.
It's got good laning phase, great AoE damage, good team fight potential, lots of crowd control and lockdown. Guaranteed crowd control if someone hits one first.
That's
as well.
true.
Very strong champion at the moment.
Oh!
Banned out constantly, but that's going to be Swift picking up Nidalee in the jungle for Vici. They don't hide their mid lane pick this time either. They still show that they're going for Talon nice and early.
But it seems like Swift had the answer when they went to the back with Coach Rui. They're like, wait a second, we were losing out the jungle mid matchup, and Swift is never going to allow a position where he's losing out the jungle matchup. So he gets himself the Nidalee, he gets those a few times. And so this is a champion that he has mastered, and we get to see here today.
But they won't get the Rumble counter pick again. Qual's going to pick that up for the second time. Could still be Gimgurum's champion in the top lane, but we've already seen Qual run it once in the mid lane against Talon, and it worked very well.
Yeah, so very easily. Qual should just get it again. Remember, he was able to run rough shot into Swift's jungle whenever you saw him on the map, because we saw what Rumble jungle could do. It's a very quick clear, so putting it in the mid lane means that he has access to the camps very quickly.
Is that why he's going for Smite? To try and go into Swift jungle a little bit more?
Yeah. Quick clear time, easy lane to push up against. So Rumble has always been a problem in the top side because it's such a long lane that if you push, it's not in your control. You can get ganked easily.
Yes.
That's not the case in the mid lane. It's a much shorter lane, so it's not that high of a risk. It's easier to protect for your junglers since they're always going to be running around in the area. And of course, you can always use your push by coming in with your smite, smiting out the camp. So Rumble has found his new home.
It's looked good so far. Qual's been picking up in the mid lane quite consistently. We'll play it for game 2 as well, unless Gimgurum tries to take that away. FPX's final bans were Kennen as well as Orianna, whereas for Vici, Gangplank and Varus were their final 2 bans. LWX goes back towards a more traditional AD carry of Kai'Sa being locked in the bottom lane.
It makes sense now that the Orianna got banned because in the bottom lane, it's been known to having some great push potential,
Fantastic.
Great protection for the rest of the map as well. So it's great to see that that gets banned out and it protects the Kai'Sa early on in lane. Remember, you cannot guarantee push at all if you're a Kai'Sa, so you're going to recognize that you're going to get pushed no matter what. It's just the difference is either losing your tower at 10 minutes into the game, which is now Ashe, which seems like perhaps 15.
So Ashe against Kai'Sa in the bottom lane. Tahm Kench paired up with that AD carry pick for Vici. So they're looking towards a top lane champion as their final pick against FPX here.
What's interesting as we see the comps completely round out for FPX. You just need that one pick, but it seems like once again it's down the road of full team fight and kiteback. Rumble ulti, Trundle pillar, Braum ulti, all of that is just great team fight setup around dragons, around the Barons as well. So FPX, I wonder what their last pick is going to be, but it doesn't change the nature of their composition.
Sad for Vici though, because both picks FPX have had into their solo lanes are technically counters. They have been able to see what Vici going to throw blind into the mid lane. Now blind into the top side of the map. With their flex pick of Rumble, they'll pick up Jace as their final pick. Could still be a mid lane champion, but most likely going into the Darius in the top lane.
Yeah, so it hits your point pretty cleanly. GameGoon should have a great time in the top side versus Audi. It still has great gank assists. That's the big pressure here. I think Swift is going to be looking towards the top lane really early on as the first gank potential once he gets level 3, because all you really need from Audi is a flash hook. That's all you need to secure the kill. And off of one death, Jace becomes useless in the top side. So Vici are going to try and snowball it early in the top lane, while FunPlus would probably want to protect that because they have some pretty good lanes top side and try and keep them in the bubble.
It's not just weakening the Jace pick as well. You're going to strengthen Darius in the top lane, who has been quite snowball heavy with the current meta. See him running around all 3 lanes, top lane, mid lane, as well as the bottom lane position.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to hear from Clement, but I hate Darius.
Why?
He's the champion that doesn't matter how far behind he is. We've seen games where he's 0-5 and he gets into a team fight, and all you really need is that one stacked target before you start dealing maximum true damage. So Darius, he just needs time in team fights, and if he gets an early laning phase that's exceptional, then yeah, he'll run wild. It is going to be a snowball, and we'll have to see what Audi can do with the pick.
He is a juggernaut though, so no natural gap closers besides his flash or any items he picks up later on, which makes it difficult for him to get into these fights. Will be assisted by an Ashe, however, which was picked up by Vici. So they do have some consistent crowd control coming out from their bottom lane, but on the top side of the map, none whatsoever. You've got an Apprehend, and that's it.
That's why they'll require the Ashe to be a lot more meaningful as the game goes on. Now, when I think about Ashe and Tahm Kench, I think Suning Gaming, because Fury and Yoon have utilized the pick to perfection once they've been in the LPL.
I mean, I'm even looking towards RNG. Uzi as well as Ming were utilizing that very early into Summer Splits when the meta got completely shaken up.
Yeah, so we know what the pick looks like when you are at max potential, being able to use Tahm Kench's ultimate to get to your target, move from lane to lane with the pressure that they have in laning phase. And of course, if you have good control wards placed around Snow early on this game, you should get prime target stun down. That's your point of fight for this team.
Well, let's see if Vici can give their fans something to appreciate on this very special day. They're currently down 1-0 against FPX. Let's go for game number 2.
And we're on to the Rift once again for Vici versus FPX. Once again, apologies for the technical difficulties, but we are getting over them, and so are the teams. So we're on to the Rift, and I know you and me were talking while the other guys, the Ancestors, was taking the champion select. So I guess it's we've got a bit of time to talk about how we think these comps are going to go.
Yeah, I feel like Vici is just all inning on their early game potential. They have Swift on the Nidalee, the champion that's made him famous, and a champion that he hasn't lost on so far this split. So definitely going for comfort, wanting to hang into the game early on.
Rocking that 100% win rate. I'm not going to say how over how many games. 2, by the way. Anyways, Vici right here, you're completely right. It feels like they are spearheading in the early game though. They're trying to front load, I guess is the right word. So they're trying to win the early game. And you were also saying to me, Clem, that you feel like they have a bit of late game potential. Like you got the Ashe initiate, and then it actually gives way for Fire Rain to find a potential flank.
Yeah, so Vici do have a chance in the late game. They do have a lot of early damage and a semi-tank in the Darius. And Alex is just losing out in the early game so hard, they accidentally reset the blue buff.
This is double bad. Okay, that could be even worse, but yeah. Yeah, Swiss is going to continue. He's going to actually challenge over this red buff. So it's going to turn from Alex looking from a triple buff to Alex potentially getting triple buffed.
This is disastrous because they wanted to win the early game. Jace has to snowball as a champion, and they wanted to do vertical jungling to secure the top lane matchup. But now this is happening. The table has completely flipped. Now Nidalee is going to stay on the top side, and there's no chance for Jace to actually play aggressive.
Yeah, this is real unfortunate. Yeah, Swift goes from red buff to red buff, and then we'll loop back towards his own blue buff. Triple buff Alex right here. And I know we were talking about this matchup with Trundle and Nidalee, you know, backstage, and this is like a potential matchup that Trundle can actually win. I feel like maybe not anymore.
It's a really weird matchup because in terms of like a dueling perspective, the Trundle actually can't catch up to the Nidalee, but he's a great duelist. If he gets the chance, he will smash her, and he's also more useful in team fights. So we've seen the win rate actually heavily favor the Trundle in this matchup.
Yeah, now the knock-on effect is that because Swift controls the top side of the map, that's also going to be really nice for Aldi. Now, he's facing down a Jace, and theoretically, this should be a fantastic matchup for Jace in the same way it's a good matchup for Quinn. Because Darius walks up and he's like, apprehend, and then Gimgoon's like, E, and then the Darius loses.
Yeah, he actually knocks him away, and a lot of the times you'll actually see the Jace go in for more follow-up damage with To the Skies and melee form, so it's a very difficult matchup for the Darius to actually win outright, and you can see the adaptations coming out from Audi, taking the phase shift instead, up to 40% of that movement speed later on into the game will help him chase down the kills.
It will, for sure, especially in those team fights, but really he's hoping for a screw-up or a miracle in top lane if he wants to win that matchup 1 versus 1, because basically the way it works is he doesn't get the time to actually hit with a crippling strike, meaning he can't actually follow up on top of the Jace once he's apprehended. It's on the Jace to have messed up or to be in range form and not have actually gotten the chance to transform, so it's actually quite difficult for him to do anything. However, as we said, the fact that Swift is on the top side of the map gives a lot of security to Aldi to do pretty much anything he wants. And you can actually see in the farm right now, he's basically even, as Swift is looking towards his mid lane.
Good dodge.
Yep, dodge out of that one because there was control within the bush. Swift was just seeing if he could just find that one.
Unfortunately, Swift is going to be a little bit late to the Raptor camp. I'm not sure who actually took the large Raptor, but it does look like Alex is still suffering quite heavily from the CS. 2 camps behind already.
Yeah.
And he's got that timer down. Swift is now going to contest every single Raptor from this one on.
He will do, 100%. And to be honest, oh, there we go. Doesn't even feel like he needs to Thundering Blow right there. But that's basically how it goes. Aldi and any other champion right there, that wasn't Jace or Quinn, he would have messed them up. You know, underneath tower, crippling blow, follow up with the Q, the auto, and that's probably like 4 to 5 stacks, and then they die. But because it's Jace, doesn't happen.
Gimgoon keeps his cool, knew that he was in tower range, just lets his backline minions do the job. So actually wins out on the trade a little bit.
Yeah, very nice. Just understanding how that matchup goes, and this was of course a pick into the Darius in the top lane. Now, in the mid lane, Fire Rain once again drafts the Talon. Coming in here with Core, the follow-up, and there's the combo. Gimgoon, lower mana, though, and actually this is a bad situation. He has to either win this one or look to run away. Looks for the front last auto attack, and Gimgoon comes up big on a 1 versus 1.
And Gimgoon also timed that quite perfectly. You could see it was very close to 6. There was a chance that if he took that entire minion wave, he would have had that minion lead as well. So very deep planning coming out from Gimgoon, keeping the distance correctly. And, you know, poor Audi had a rough early game and gets camped by Gimgoon in the brush. So this actually cancels out a lot of what happened in terms of the early vertical jungling.
100%. And I mean, we just see that one more time, but Gimgoon, he knows exactly how much mana he has, and he also knows that he's going to ding 6 off the back of this trade.
Yeah, the EQ combo has enough mana, crucially for the final knockback. And then finishes the kill. If he didn't get that mana, which honestly a lot of players probably thought that he didn't have the mana to do that, he would have fallen right there.
Yeah, 100%. That was basically perfect calculation on the side of Gimgoon. And we talk about this guy, and Gimgoon has a very interesting history, right? Like, comes in, he's on game talents, and I know that, like, you can look at his history and be like, well, he's been on a lot of bottom of the table teams, and at what point is Gimgoon part of the problem? Now, what I think is he's part of the solution. I think that
the solution to what?
To getting solo kills and becoming a good team. I actually think that, like, if you use Gimgoon in the right way, then he can be an extremely strong asset. Because you think about the type of comps that teams have had to run with him, the 4-1s, usually the 4 runs around like a headless chicken, but the 1 is doing very well.
My metaphor for Gimgoon is waiting for him to, you know, show up and actually play the full spectrum of what a top laner should be, like outside of the laning phase, is kind of wishing like your grandma would never die.
Right.
It's a really sweet thought, but it's never going to happen.
I know the other analogy for FPX as they are right now in the league, or when they're towards the bottom, it's like, instead of a phoenix rising from the ashes, it's more like a pigeon on fire rising from the dumpster.
They're better than that, and you can probably
so
see right now, Fire Rain is getting his head kicked in by the Rumble one-on-one.
Yeah, he's not as fire as the Raptors we had on stage earlier, that's for certain. But for now, though, FPX still have that 1 kill advantage, mainly in the top side of the map. The big difference is how the jungle has gone, and as you can see, the assistance comes in from the mid lane, able to rotate, allowing Swift more access into the enemy jungle, taking away these buffs consistently. And it's a question of, well, how can Alex actually find his way into this game now?
That's going to be very difficult. What he's doing right now is just making sure that Gimgoon can actually win his lane as hard as possible. He's setting up all the vision necessary, and he's putting his chips there. What this does leave open is the entire bottom side of the map. If you look at that vision from Vici Gaming, it's such an easy 4v2 play to go down into the bot lane, and they do have the jungle pressure to set it up as well.
If I were just moving top side, seeing if there was a control ward in that pixel brush, not going to be the case, so he walks down catwalk, moves back towards the mid lane. As you see, there's maybe a slight opportunity for him to jump onto core. Doesn't have the ultimate just yet either. It is on cooldown, of course, at level 8. We're about 8 minutes into the game as well. We've only had that 1 kill on top side. It's really just been about the jungler's pathing so far. It seems like Swift is still gaining the upper hands, and that ripple effect of how that level 1 went is still haunting Alex to this day. That being said, good old Cool is going to go to the bot side of the map and help Alex secure this crab and hopefully catch up in the jungle. We are actually now even in terms of experience, at the very least, between the two junglers.
I'm a little surprised that Nidalee isn't pressuring this mid lane window a bit harder. Cool just uses Equalizer to no effect on Talon. So they should be looking to use this opportunity to push the mid lane in and then get that bot lane kill that they're looking for.
Not possible. Caveman just walking up there. So still FPX controlling this bottom side with that Kai'Sa and the Braum. The big thing later on to this game will be Snow and how accurate he is with those arrows, looking for those initiates, and seeing how planned out Vici movements are in that mid game and the late game when we look towards those team fights.
They do need to control this river. Trundle is one of those picks that is such a good counter against Tahm Kench. I actually think that's the reason they even picked this champion up in the first place. Tahm Kench, without any mobility, is very easily stuck to a wall on the side lanes, and you can see Alex pressuring the bot lane over and over again.
Yeah, over and over. First dragon of the game will go over to FPX. It is a Cloud Dragon. Next one's going to be Infernal, though, which is a little bit spicier. Now Swift is on his way to the bottom lane. It's not a mid lane gank, but he's looking to at least shadow this lane. Nope, just going back to his own jungle. Realizes bot lane probably doesn't need help currently. They're just constantly pushing in, and this one should even up. I believe he just passed over a ward on FPX's side. Yeah, he's at least going to be spotted by it now.
Now, Swift has just been passing over wards multiple times in this last minute. He showed himself in the top lane, and then he shows himself in the bottom lane again. And FPX manages to avoid everything coming out from Swift. I think it's a bit unfortunate because I think a lot of these wards could have actually been avoided. Like the top river ward where he showed himself, that could definitely have been called out by Audi. I don't feel like Swift needed to expose himself so many times, and you can see how FPX is playing. They're completely aware of the situation. Trundle is even there to help if Swift tries to go for a dive.
I mean, look at the Rumble. He's also there. Everyone is ready for the rotation and to lock the Nidalee down if she looks to do anything in the bottom side. LWX and Crisp sit underneath this tower looking for a potential aggress, but Swift, he thinks he has the upper hand. He's about to launch out of the brush, lands the Javelin onto LWX, but here's the counter gang coming in from Alex. How good is it? Well, they just choose to back away.
Really good pillar coming out from Alex, blocking the path of 3 members on Vici Gaming, and the entire play fizzles. Vici, they're really so close from completing this play, but I really do think they need to play around their windows a bit faster. I felt like if Swift actually took the time that he spent going into the top lane and exposing himself and pushed in the mid and went bot, a lot of this would have been much more successful, but they missed their timing windows. They didn't use the opportunity where Cool did not have his equalizer up, and they also missed out on the ward timing inside FPX's jungle as well. So, you know, just a lot of things not really aligning for Vici, and this is kind of their early laning game problem where we've been harping on. Swift, great individual player, doesn't really play well with his team.
I think that's it really, right? Because we're looking at this early game, we're like, well, fantastic start from Swift. Triple buff into what looks like another triple buff, moving on to that blue buff. Denies it from the mid lane, denies it from Alex. As actually we're looking towards the two junglers once again, tracking each other. Swift is definitely in enemy territory as the bottom lane is reacting, and Caveman and Snow are definitely not, though they do have the Abyssal Voyage and a global in the form of Ashe's ultimate, but you're absolutely right. Swift doesn't seem to play well with others. Bot lane is about to fall, so Alex is almost forced down here. We'll see if Vici can actually force down this tower. Looks to be no, though, because Swift is back into base, as is Caveman and Snow. Now, this will be seen on the ward right here. They've actually been... Oh, no, Caveman has to force the flash right there. Teleport from behind. We'll be able to back up the support.
A little bit unfortunate right there. Getting an extra flash out of this tower, which should be falling down anyway. So FPX with a successful defend, and I actually feel like Alex is playing out this portion of the game quite well. They're just delaying time for LWX to get his items.
In the top lane, looking to assassinate into top lane. There's the Apprehend, followed with the Shadow of Swords. One Gimgun is almost instantly dead. Fire Rain delivers.
Great roam coming out from Fire Rain. He actually did not go through the jungle, but instead went through the Herald pathing. So FPX unable to catch out his route towards the top lane, and such an easy kill on Gimgun.
All right, so there's definitely some a bit of misalignment, definitely some questions, because we're talking about Swift right now and we're saying, well, his impact on the team and the way he's interacting, it doesn't seem like he's getting the most from it. That being said, we just had a roam topside, a kill, and the bottom lane tower, the first one of the game, also went over to Vici. So in terms of tangible terms, Vici are actually ahead.
Yeah, their early game champions are actually giving them quite sizable benefits. Ashe is supposed to win the bot lane, paired up with Tahm Kench. It's one of the strongest lane that we've seen in the league currently. And I just want to compliment Fire Rain once more on that roam towards the top lane. If you look at the top side, he dodged both wards undetected and went on to Gimgun through the only possible route. Now, I don't know if it's intuition. I don't know if they actually got tangible evidence on where those ward placements would actually be, but that's really impressive.
It is, for sure. And to be honest, I'm giving more credit now nowadays to Fire Rain, because before, you know, he was kind of the meme player. Like, it's like, oh, he's the Mordekaiser one trick, and he comes in sometimes behind EasyHoon. Now, the fact that he's been on the starting roster for a good amount of time now, I can actually definitively say that Fire Rain has pretty legit mechanics, and it's actually has some really good pathing. Now, in the bottom side of the map, this is just a constant lockdown onto Aldi. He finds the Apprehend onto the Kai'Sa, lays down the Pineapple, but doesn't even get the Guillotine off. Cool rotates from the mid lane, and that's a crispy kill in the bottom.
Yep, and it's about trading towers at this point. Vici looking to equalize on the top side. It does look like they will have the extra members and time to do it. FPX, unfortunately, their minion wave wasn't hitting the tower soon enough.
No, it definitely wasn't, though. Snow and K-Pan move to the top side, look for the second tower of the game. Now, constantly moving this duo from lane to lane. Good lane science coming in from Vici, finding the cracks in the armor here to allow them to take down these outer turrets. This will be responded in the bottom side by FPX, but now there is access towards the Herald for them.
Yeah, this is a great trade coming out for Vici, a classical 2v1 where the dragon is already taken, you go top, you take the Herald, and next you just crack open the mid lane base as well. It's looking pretty dire for FPX, but because you have to remember, they're running with a Jace, which really doesn't do much when he's behind.
Yep. Fire Rain still access over these Raptors, always nice to have, because it seems like for the most part Swift has been denying those Raptors also from Alex's side. Now, I am looking towards the man himself, Alex. Speak of the devil, he's on the bottom side of mid lane, but chooses not to go for it. So, we'll take a bit of time as we are resetting onto the map as a Vici, as a FPX. And I just want to ask you, Clement, what do you think, to you, why Swift's Nidalee is so strong? Because we see him in the early game, it seems like he's had a good impact, but not a great impact.
Because he can do things on his own. He can actually just waltz into the enemy jungle, take whatever camp he wants. He will never get punished for it because Nidalee has that mobility. And he can also just duel people and have influence in the lanes with just simply a red buff. It's a much easier champion to have solo influence. It's not like something where you need a lot of coordination with your teammates necessarily. And I think that's a reason a lot of teams actually just take this champion away from him. You take away that X factor that Swift brings to the table.
What's special about Swift's Nidalee? Because that's a lot of things that Nidalee can do as a champion, but what's the special sauce, Clement? Tell me the secret ingredient.
I'm not sure exactly. Because Nidalee, Swift is the only player in the LPL to actually pick the Nidalee up. And if I had to guess, I'd say the reason is that Nidalee, when you're thinking about full bruiser teamfights, and those teamfights happen quite often these days, she's not really the best champion for that. Does get focused down, is fairly weak. And let's look at Caveman here.
It's fine. Yep. He's discovered fire. He's going to illuminate FPX as they look towards him. But I know you were talking to me and you were saying that, like, in high Korean Challenge, there's actually a good amount of Nidalees, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually interesting that the LPL itself hasn't picked up, you know, more Nidalees. But it does, in fact, just seem to be Swift as a legacy pick. Now, of course, every single time he plays it, there does seem to be something there, right? And maybe you can't put your finger on it. Maybe you can look at the VAR like 16 times, like, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, they keep winning. Because this would be his third game in a row right now. And right now, it's actually looking really good for Vici. They have an Inferno, they have the tower lead, they have a good early game, something we can very rarely say of Vici. So I don't know if it's just like a confidence thing, the team that knows they can push up because he's playing around the side of the map, but for now it's working. Fire Rain went face first into the Troll King. Now, I saw this happen to Rise in the recent cinematic, and it didn't go so well. Oh, there you go, lays down the pineapples, and yeah, that's what we call a a shared int, where he kind of threw his AD carry into the fire, watched him burn, and then burned alongside him.
And that's that vaunted Vici coordination we were talking about. This is not a team that feels like they're on the same page. Having a chuckle right there, Alex. Yeah. It's like, okay, I'll take it. Probably didn't deserve it, but fine.
Unfortunate. So that would be another 2 kills going into FPX into a top lane tower there for him, pretty much off the back of K-Man wanting that play to happen. LWX actually forcing down the mid lane, and we have the rotation from the rest of FPX. Now I'm looking towards Vici, whereas the rotations coming in from Aldi and the bot side of the map, the minion wave dissipates. So they're going to be here to defend, but FPX got a lot off of that and actually swing the gold lead into their favor.
I just want to illuminate why Vici did that. They probably only saw the Trundle before they started the Abyssal Voyage, so they thought that they could have a good chance for a pick, and that's exactly how you want to execute it. You can't send the Ashe into a fight and then have her stun someone. It's a great catch potential, but unfortunately, they didn't really see what was around the corner, and Cool was very happily waiting for them.
He was, yeah. And,
warm welcome, I would call it.
It was a warm welcome, for sure. Picks up 2 kills off of that. And first up, it's Firing going face to face with Trundle. You know, not particularly great.
Well,
has to pop the ultimate.
Wait a minute. They actually do see the Rumble. They see the Rumble so clearly. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm running out of excuses.
Fair, but I think Caveman may have like activated the ultimate and was like already like committed, and like Ashe was, you know, getting in, jumping in the truck, and was like in the man, I was trying to come up with, you know, Scooby-Doo, and he had the Scooby-Doo mobile or whatever. I don't know what it's called, but I couldn't come up with the reference at the time. Unlucky. Either way, mid lane tower will go down. That will be courtesy of Shelly over to Vici. So they do manage to once again even up the gold lead in top lane. Looking for the assassinate once again onto Cool, though he has now picked up the Seeker's Arm Guard, so he's got a bit of armor to him. So it's difficult to 100 to 0 the Rumble.
Good itemization coming out from Cool, getting the extra HP from Morellonomicon and finishing the Seekers early. It's exactly what you want when you're going up against a lot of low health targets like the Nidalee and the Ashe, which you can burn down with Magic Pen. And what I'm really impressed about is actually FPX's defense of their own red side jungle. They do have wards in all the crucial positions, and here is the real test for Vici Gaming, because they're running off a lot of pick potential. They have the Tahm Kench, they have the Ashe Arrow, and they're also running the Talon. Can they actually convert that to anything with their global plays and their mobility into finding picks onto FPX?
That's the $1 million question, Clement, and if I could answer it, then I'd have $1 million. But I don't.
I don't think you would. But
hey, maybe. Vici, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Because they have the tools in this game. Like we were talking about in the early game, it went pretty well for them, apart from that misplay towards the top side of River. And then when you look towards the later game team fights, well, they have an Ashe to get them in there. They have an Tahm Kench to look for the rotations, and they have a pretty good front line to spearhead them themselves into FPX and then allow firing access into the backline. So theoretically, there are the tools here for Vici, is whether they can just execute on that. And now, just from the tape that I've seen from Vici, I would have to say probably not. But we have to look at this game and see if they can actually make that iteration, because they did, however, ban the Kindred. So there is adaptation happening from game to game, from series to series.
They're learning, they're taking baby steps, but the real question here is I want to see when Swift finally decides to go with his teammates and clear out that top red side ward. There's no reason for there to be any control wards, any vision for FPX in this side of the jungle. They have a lot of mobility with the talent to come over walls and surprise people, so they should take the first move into that area. As soon as Cool shows himself in lane trying to push a wave, they should immediately go into the jungle and take that section over. It's just a matter of when they actually start doing that. Or they could never do it.
Or never. Yes, that's also a potential. Though I am looking at Swift and Aldi moving into the bot side of the map right now, along with Caveman. So they're actually looking to group up, place down deep vision, look for potentials to loose the arrow onto someone who's by themselves. Just like this, into mid lane, LWX caught, but here's Chris right behind him as well. The rest of the team is following up, but Chris is slowly breaking right here. The door is down, and Caveman finds the tongue. Where's the follow-up though? Alex right in front of him, looking to block the spear over the wall. It's the Raptors who are coming in to save the President. And Swift, in the end, will just take a shock blast from Gimgoon. So nice defusal there on the play from FPX.
Very surprising. Only one flash burned away from FPX's side. I thought Audi would be able to secure that kill, but I think Gimgoon probably knocked him away from the play.
And it looks like counterpunch coming in from FPX. Apprehend doesn't quite find his mark there onto LWX. Now the minion wave is here. Great equalizer from Cool. Splits up the fight. Lots of damage down onto Snow and Aldi, who has to walk past the coals. Mid tower falls. Oh my god, he's in deep. The shotgun That's a bit of kickback on that one, LWX, but I respect it.
Oh, that was... He didn't even land the W. It was just a previous CC, I believe, and he just flew in for the killer instinct, but that was a 1-for-1 trade in the best case scenario, and the entire composition for FPX is actually buying time until Kaisa can get her 2 core items. So, a very questionable play, but quintessential LWX play.
Yeah, very true. Typically in Animals, when they have that killer instinct, they are pretty confident they can win. I think that's very true of LWX. He is very confident that he will come out the other side. That being said, he does this very often into 4 people. So I think that maybe he just needs a bit more evolution down the line, right? Maybe a couple more generations.
Yeah, you didn't need the nameplate for that play. Like, everyone knew that was LWX.
It's true, yeah.
Here he goes again.
You know, that's actually a great idea for a segment, Clement. You know, where we take off the name tags, and then we watch it play, and we're like, okay, who was it? Who was the player?
So good. You know, for Vici, it would be Audi and Switch fumbling a 2v2 top lane. That would definitely be the classic addition for Vici.
Or you'd zoom in on the game time, and then it's top lane dying before 10 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much. Or maybe Fire Rain, like catching on a triple kill. He had a couple good Yasuo plays.
True.
That game against EDG was actually very surprising for a lot of fans. It was actually our most kill-heavy game in the LPL so far. 51 kills between Vici and EDG. And I actually was pretty hyped about that. I thought Vici was turning a new page. Maybe they were going to become this, middle-of-the-pack team, able to take it to EDG. And those hopes fizzled pretty quickly.
But adaptations are happening over time for Vici. I actually think the conversation is very interesting just talking about mid laners, because we were saying like the big plays out from Fire Rain, but if I saw a big play coming out from like an Aurelia, big mechanics coming out, I wouldn't know if it was Fire Rain, Fen, Rookie. I think there's like a lot of good mechanical AD kind of like assassin players in the mid lane right now.
It's definitely true, definitely true. Well, if they show you 10 replays in a row and it's all Yasuo, then it's probably Fire Rain. Fire Rain actually only plays 3 champions. Probably 4 now with the talent.
I don't know. You got to bring the AD carries into the equation. You know?
That's true, that's true.
Speaking of which, we'll maybe see him later today.
Oh yeah, I love me some Maple. He's always so
you almost said
creative.
Maple there. That's some LMS seeping into your language.
What?
I know you're saying Able, but it sounded like Maple.
Well, Maple could always still come over. I'm just saying. I would hate to lose a region, but I would love to have an extra good team in the LPL.
Hey.
Here goes Fire Rain. Uh-oh.
The prey has suddenly become the predator as he looks at the wolf, and it's just like, yeah, I can win this. Here comes the killer instinct once again out from LWX, lays down the calls right here, and Caveman already under attack. He's discovered fire, but not in a good way. He's going to drop 2 kills to FPX.
And that's such an unfortunate chain of events. So what Vici Gaming should have done was immediately backed off of the mid lane. Now their mid lane was spotted and their top lane was top. They couldn't in time. And they're the ones that are supposed to be using the 1-3-1 correctly. They're the ones that can stretch this composition out.
Swift over the wall along here with Fire Rain as well. There's also a blast cone potentially going into the play, but it's actually going over to Fire Rain. He's beginning to believe. The steal comes through from Vici.
Oh, and FPX, they had such a good starting play, but Vici able to come over the wall, double smites on their side. So much distraction coming in from all different angles. And FPX, they just take their eyes away from the Baron HP 1 second. And Fire Rain comes up with a potential save on this game.
We'll see that again right here. It's happening in the mid lane where it started off, and it was Crisp to begin, Aldrix to follow, and Cool definitely finished.
And this is just the difference in communication speed. You can see that Braum was walking up as soon as they saw Talon onto the side lanes. So good job on FPX here. They had the 5v3 advantage going straight for the Baron pit. But unfortunately, they aren't able to take away Fire Rain. There should be a pillar here to try to knock him back or something. Gets it with the level 17 smite anyway.
Yeah. That's always a possibility, and Fire Rain thought that was absolutely hilarious. I watched you on the player cam right there, Fire Rain. And that's the thing, when you have smites in the mid lane, they can also come in for the potential steal. At the same time, it looked like he and Swift were setting up for like a double burst at like a certain number, but he just jumped in, saw the opportunity, knew they were going, and just pulled the trigger and found it.
There's one thing I want to commend Fire Rain on, and it's his persistence in playing the side lanes. He typically has very high level counts and very good CS into the mid-later portions of the game. Sure, he doesn't coordinate with his team as well when they do it, but here comes another fight.
Finding catch into the mid lane. It's a catfish. Catch of the day goes to FPX. Oh, great arrow though coming out from Snow. Locks down Jimgo. He's on the retreat right here and he's blasting Chris, but he's in a bit too deep. Maybe taken after LPX right there. FPX turning around and this is a frenzy right now as we follow Aldi. Gets a kill, looks for the hunt. Slam down. That's the guillotine. Chris trying to run for his life, but he's being chased down by a man with an axe. Here's Cool running away as well in his own battle from the talent, but it's Swift to find another.
And Vici completely flipped the script right there. I thought Chris was blocking everything and FPX would be able to walk away from the fight unscathed. Nimbus Cloak, Audi comes in to save the day. The phase rush with him as well. And he's just able to chase down those kills so effortlessly. This is the problem with FPX's team composition. They really don't have much of a front line. Once that Braum is gone, there's no one really protecting the hard carries.
That's the problem. Cool, with no ultimate right here. Alex about to spawn. Eldubix the same. So at the very most, it should just be a tower here from Vici, but they should be able to crack open this mid lane, which is a big deal for them. This minion wave will now dissipate, but on the top side, Darius finds another. Vici with a massive swing in this game off of that Baron power play. It's going to be a 6,000 gold lead to them.
Yeah, it was a 2 for 4 scenario right there. It actually started off with FPX getting the upper hand, catching out Caveman. Gimbu does go low, but doesn't really die here. And watch this from Crisp. He blocks all the damage coming out from the Ashe, but unfortunately, Alex comes in and just watch Audi as he's able to mop up the front line, gets the double decimate, is still going. And once he gets that R down, he gets the extra Nimbus Cloak speed as well to try to catch up to Crisp, and they do find the kill here.
I mean, that's the thing with Aldi and Darius right now, is the amount of ways you can speed yourself up. People think that, you know, Darius is a stocky build. You know, he's not very athletic. But when you have Nimbus Cloak, you have the extra movement speed coming in from the Phage in the Triforce, and you also have Phase Rush. The guy can run the 100-meter sprint pretty damn fast.
Yeah, it's a lot of extra movement, Steve. 40% on the phase rush, and then there's extra 100 move speed on the Nimbus Cloak as well. So definitely a very scary thing to start a fight without being able to focus down the Darius. If Darius is the one on cleanup duty, guess what? He's probably going to come out ahead every single time.
It's actually the really frustrating thing about Darius nowadays is as long as he survives in team fights and gets to the 30-40 minute mark in team fights, he'll always be a threat even if he's like 0-9. Because as long as he has the items and he has the Triforce, he's got the Sterix, and he moves himself towards a Guardian Angel, that's enough AD and scaling onto Nox and Guillotine where he's still a massive problem.
I'm actually surprised he isn't nerfed, because he's been hovering at around 57% win rate in High Challenger for quite a while. And the main problem is he builds a lot of times only one truly offensive item. Late game team fight, he does 5,000 true damage to your entire team and just finishes the game. And it's like, is that really fair? Is it? Like,
I mean, the thing with Darius, I mean, historically, Clement, has been that he's a champion that only finds his way into the meta when he gets access to hit people. Because otherwise, he'll just get kited. And I think there's a lot of compositions you can play right now in the meta where you can lock him down, but if you don't have enough, like, hard CC to stop that from happening, he will run rampant. You know, like, Darius and Alawi are actually very similar champions in that if you go near either of those champions, you get wrecked. Yeah. But usually they can't actually catch up to you because they have no gap closers themselves really in their kits.
That's a little bit too easy. Shirelia's Righteous Glory, Nimbus Cloak. There's so many things that just help compositions get into the fray.
So what I'm saying is now I'm going to go home, pick up Phase Rush, Triforce, and Nimbus Cloak on the Lowy and see if it works.
Probably will. Probably will.
Yeah. And then try it on Urgot.
Just don't play Alawi.
Okay.
Not a great champion.
Yeah, I've got to say shoutouts to the Alawi mains Discord. We're not having a great time right now. It's definitely not a party in there. You know, I walked in and was like, hey guys, any new Alawi tech? And they were like, yeah, it's really just a sad day. No one really plays Alawi anymore because of the current meta. You know, it's no tanks, it's all just carries. It's like Jace's in the top lane. And like, feel you guys, I'll see you in 6 months. So yeah, it's not a great time, but yeah, I'll log into the Urgot mains Discord and see how we're going.
You know who else isn't having a great time?
Who's that?
FPX.
Yeah, not the case, Clement. 32 minutes into the game, and FPX are actually getting creamed. Look at them, 7,000 gold behind. This is the second game. There's a time for Vici to step up. To be fair, it's right now. But a lot of these plays, I feel like in this game, both Vici and FPX have been the other team starting first and the other one finishing.
It's a little bit hard for FPX to go into the fray. They really need to take care of maybe Audi first, because if he stays around, it's just too easy to get resets on FPX's composition. They're so brittle. There's so many targets that you can just chop heads through. Like, I don't think the Trundle is going to do much for you. He actually has a very hard time even escaping this scenario. Same goes with the Rumble as well. It doesn't have a ton of range. It doesn't have a ton of counter-engage potential. So the way I see FPX right now is they're kind of holding onto their side of the map. They need to find picks, but they don't have any side lane control to do it either.
I think part of this is the composition though, right, Clement? Because we're looking at this one and you look at like a mid-game pick like Rumble, a mid-game pick like Jace, and then you have late-game insurance in the form of Kai'Sa, and it seems like right now that's what they're waiting for. It's like, alright Kai'Sa, get all the gold, reach 4 items, and then we'll look for a fight. Because right now in this mid-game, while they've been diving on Vici, a lot of these plays hasn't worked out. You think to the mid lane, they dive on the Tam Kench, didn't work out. Go into the jungle, look towards the Baron, didn't work out. But what they can look for is potential picks. If they can, great. They find a Harpoon, but it's not going to be a kill. And they've also got to think of Fire Rain, who's constantly looking for these flanks. But Swift,
where are you?
This isn't your jungle. And now FPX, it gives them the perfect opportunity. Look at that equalizer. The follow through as well. In the backlines, Assassinate comes in from Fire Rain, but he's got the perfect timing. FPX, they could actually just go from front to back and demolish everybody on Vici. Killer instinct. Now's not the time. No, not like this. Gimgoom turns 1 versus 2, turns it around. But Snow is the last man standing.
That was a fight from 7k down, but FPX find the pick onto Swift and then clean up 4 kills away. It's a massive gold equalization onto FPX's side. Even though they're probably going to lose something here in the top side, I actually felt like that was a great fight to take if you're the team onto the back foot. Massive barbecue coming out from Cool to start it, and just everyone going in to try to save Swift. That was a bit questionable from my perspective.
I feel like LWX has a twitchy pinky thinger, where he's like hovering all over the R button, and sometimes he just twitches, and he's like, "Oh, I'm in, boys!" Like halfway through that fight, because FPX, look at this, Clement. You're talking about like the barbecue. It looks great. They find a pick onto Swift. Gimgoon diffuses Tanner from the backside, and then what does LWX do?
This is a great barbecue to start the fight, but look at Audi and how Audi hides himself outside of vision. He understands the way of LWX. He knows this person inside and out, and he just walks around the corner, waits behind the pillars, like, "What's up? Surprise, LWX!" Just takes him down with 1 rotation. That could have been a clean pickup for FPX, but wasn't the case.
Surprise, Clement, surprise. This is like when you play hide and seek with a 5-year-old and they don't know.
Object permanence is a very difficult concept. Okay, it's not something that comes with everyone. It's not a natural instinct.
He's in a team fight with them, and it's just like, "Oh, I can't see them anymore. They must not exist." FPX,
but here we go again.
Once again. They spin him out. It's actually an Audi inside.
Oh, look at that equalizer!
They managed to deck the Ashe. 2 kills to FPX. They look to follow. Aldi, great upper hand, looks to follow up, but LDX this time has brought a perfect timing. Swift 1 versus 2, and in the backside, Fire Rain goes big. 5-man ultimate goes over to Vici.
A triple kill coming in from Fire Rain. They might actually just finish the game here. They're definitely looking for it. 40 seconds on every single death timer. Can they do it? The extra attack speed coming in from Swift should help them take down the base.
I mean, right now they should probably pick it up. Fire Rain coming in from the front door, and he does so much damage against towers right here. No one's going to come for another 25 seconds. This game will go over to Vici. When it comes to crunch time, Vici will make it happen against FPX and take us to Game 3.
And doing the Zhonya is just a show-off move from Swift, but that's the confidence he has when you give him the Nidalee. Vici finally finding a win for themselves on Vici's Celebration Day.
I mean, I'll be honest, wasn't looking at the talent. I don't think FPX were either, and he managed to sweep up everyone in that fight. I just noticed him pop the ultimate, and he just hit multiple members, blasted multiple people at the same time, even though it looked like FPX were winning that fight. Can't wait for the analysts to break that one down, because I've actually got to see who was the hero of that final fight and what actually happened, because that was a complete mess, because it looked like FPX were going to win that fight.
Cool had such a good equalizer. It was a triple down onto Snow and onto Caveman at the same time. I believe Audi was caught in the scenario as well, but then I believe this is what happened. Talon sweeps in, brings everyone low enough, and you can see Swift kind of getting the executes, following up the kills, and they managed to mop up FPX. I think what FPX take away from this game is that, hey, you might be good laners, you might be good early game, but you probably still want a late game insurance plan. Like, if you are going to give Vici the Nidalee, then don't bank entirely on your early game.
That's fair, but I think FPX, they kind of did draft the late game insurance plan in the Kai'Sa, right? Like, they were waiting for Kai'Sa to get big, but that never really happened. Because they kept trying to force fights.
It's true that they do have a late game insurance plan, but it wasn't
a good one?
Yeah, it's like you only have one piece of the puzzle, and the other two puzzles post 40 minutes, they're kind of like super minions.
Right.
Like, Game Goon's holding the hammers, like, I can knock someone away for you. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
or do you want me to walk away?
But I mean, I think the big problem, Clement, was around the mid-game is that they had all these mid-game picks. They just got diffused every time by Vici. It's like they start stuff, they got to kill maybe on a Tam Kench, but then the turnaround was also really good coming out from the team. It seemed like Vici had a good grasp on how they were going to utilize their comp. Like, Fire Rain comes in from the backside, gets an assassinate, even from the front line. I actually think that Snow did a very good job with the Ash arrows.
Yeah, my narrative would be a little bit different. The way I see it was like Vici had a very good snowballing early game. They capitalized on that mess up from level 1 super hard, split the map up. Their bottom lane was pushing the entire time, and they got the mid game early because they got the Herald as well. So those picks from FPX were actually good defenses in my eyes. They were ways to drag out the game, get them a chance to win with LWX's Kai'Sa, and it's on Vici's side that really could have cleaned up the game a little bit faster. You could see the way that they were getting picked off was because of the communication difference between the teams. FPX, they seem to be much more on the same page. Everyone knows that Swift is in that corner, and they seem to share Fog of War instead of on Vici, where it seems like everyone is playing under paranoia.
I mean, that's the thing. This is where I start looking at the micro, right, Clement? You know, it's just like, oh, Paul's talking about micro again. But then we look at team fights, and it's like, well, what actually happened? I think a lot of the blame does have to go to LWX. Like, he just constantly, again, object permanence. We were joking about it, but in that final fight or the second to final fight in the jungle, imagine if he didn't just int. Imagine he didn't just go face first into a Darius on Kai'Sa. He managed to stay in the backline and he sweeps up. Because those are the only people alive, and they were pretty low health, and he was on the Kai'Sa.
If someone flashes the wall, that means they're going home, right?
They're gone. Yeah. They don't exist anymore. That's not the case. So it
definitely isn't.
Again, and then we take a look at the Baron fight, and it was a similar thing. I thought it was going to go well, because he actually had the perfect timing, hits the stopwatch, he's okay. But then, again, the question marks in our eyes is, what happened to the talent? Because he just disappeared from everyone's eyes, and he comes at the end, it's just like, I'm going to hit everyone with my ultimate, and then everyone dies.
Yeah, definitely at least got like a 4-man with that Shadow Assault right there.
We're going to take a look at that jungle fight, actually, that happened in the jungle. And it started off really well for FPX, because again, they find the pick onto Swift, the ultimates are in the right place, Game Goon finds the defusal, but then it's what happens on the latter half, which is the problem here, Clement.
Yeah, it was very dangerous for Vici right here. You can see their front line already collapsing. Audi can't really get anything done here. Nobody's low enough for the Noxian Guillotine, so he has to flash out immediately, go back, and watch LWX go in. The pool and the Talons. Surprise, surprise, LWX. Where did you think those enemy carries were? Going in at this inopportune moment and just costing his team potentially the game right there.
Potentially. I mean, there was one more shot, right? And I think that was around the Baron, but of course they came in on the weaker side of that, because they start off the Baron, they look for the turn. In theory, it's a good idea, and I like the fact that no matter what really happens in the game, FPX will always do the same thing. They'll keep on looking to brawl with you, you know, in the trenches, and I like that about FPX. But it means that if it was in those fights prior that they've been losing, and that wasn't just the only fight that they lost. It was that one, then the last like 2 or 3 that went over to Vici. And even then, yes, it was even, but that's the problem right there, is that you keep going for these fights and it's just a coin flip every single time.
I think FPX, to me, they still have the better teamfight coordination overall, but they also have the higher propensity to just power int and then give things away. And that's our trouble with identifying FPX. We've always had this difficulty with nailing them down to either a teamfight composition or a laning composition, or what are they really? Because they've tried so many things. They have one of the largest champion pools in the entire league. Cool, especially, has 14 champions this split alone. But the question is, they never seem to follow through completely on a single style. And a lot of the times is because they can't separate the concept with the execution. They fumble the execution, and nothing really looks right. So I really wanted to see FPX come in and say, okay, we definitely win out on the teamfight composition, the coordination. So how about let's play a team composition that can A, split push better, and then B, collapse better. If they get those two things right, I think it's very difficult to see how they actually lose.
That's true. And on the opposite side, you have a team like Vici, who, in theory, if they are meeting them on their own territory, essentially, you know, where we can fight all the time, FPX should win. But I think it's from individual performances where they're really able to step up, right? And I look towards Swift in the early game, but then I look to FireRain, who will be our man of the match in this one, as the person who really managed to drive it home on this talent. I think we've had a lot of great talent players recently, and it gets to the point where it's like, are you a talent player? Are you a talent player? Okay, let's see how you do. Oh, you're really good. Let's ban it for the next game. That definitely happened in the TOP game that I saw against Korn, where he picks up the talent, blasts the enemy team, and they're like, okay, no more. No more talent for you.
It's such an easy pick to snowball at times, and I think if you're going up against FireRain, which has a very limited champion pool, you try to take away those X factors as much as possible. The Yasuo, the Talon, those things you don't really want to leave on the table, or else you want very, very hard counters to go against them.
Exactly. Reminder, guys, because we are going to our third game in this series, we will be starting Royal Never Give Up versus WE on time. That means at 7 PM on China side. So that means that we'll try our best to finish up the game, but if we're a long ways off, we will cut out of that one and move to RNG versus WE. So keep that one in mind. We are going to take a quick break before we head into our final series, our final game of this series.
危机眼中的奇迹是用熏血浇灌过后的开花结果。